It is our first ever live Q&A, and you're going to have to stay tuned for this one. Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. My name is Jennifer Carl-Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write multiple genres, and I am currently writing a murder mystery.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
And welcome to all of our listeners who are here with us today, as well as those that will listen later as a podcast. We appreciate every single one of you. I know that we say this kind of like flippantly every week, but truly it makes a huge difference. If you do like this show, like however you're listening to us, if you're on YouTube, if you are on Spotify, can you like and share what we're doing? It makes a huge difference for us to be able to find other Christian writers that would enjoy being part of this Christian writing community. Like right now, we have a ton of people already in our chat. If they would all like the episode, then that would help other people to find it as well. So let's do that real quick. We always start with our what's up. Real quick before we do that, let's go over and see our chat. Okay, ladies?
Yeah.
Mhm.
First of all, Meg McDonald was here early. She said, good morning. I can't possibly miss a show if I pulled it up this early, right? She was like 15, 20 minutes early. So there should be some sort of reward for that. Someone showing up that early, right?
Yeah.
Catherine Carroll is here. She says, haha, right, Meg, good morning. Teresa's here. Good morning, Teresa. Purpose Behind the Pen is here. Writing Shorts. Well, that's Jamie. Good morning, Writing Shorts.
Good morning.
Let's see. Okay, thanks a lot, Jamie. I'm gonna skip that next one. And then Teresa Thomas says, Jamie! Exclamation point. Yeah, we're so glad that Jamie is here. We're so Jamie that glad is here.
Yeah.
So we'd like to start every episode with our what's up. It is a chance for us to share with each other what's going on in our lives, both personally and professionally. I don't know if you guys can see this. I am like glitching, and I just checked my internet speed, and I am like golden on speed. So I don't know what's going on, if there's a problem with StreamYard or not, but hopefully this will clear itself up. So do you guys see
I thought
that?
it was,
That I'm like
yeah.
glitching?
I thought it was my connection because we've had issues with my internet, and so I wasn't gonna
Mhm.
bring it up. But yes, I see it.
I had
Yeah.
some
So
problems
okay.
Wednesday
So
night
hopefully we won't have any problems with the audio.
when I was doing my Bible study Wednesday night. I had some problems with glitchiness too.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're gonna start with this, and how about we start with you, Tina? What's up with you?
Well, if you were with us a couple weeks ago when we did the 10 tips for writing productivity, I put several of them to work for me, and I have done really well. They have really worked for
That's
me,
awesome.
and I have like the first act of my murder mystery done, but rough draft done.
Yay.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
really happy with that, and that was like a week and a half.
That's
So
amazing, Tina.
I
It worked.
I think
and
also too,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think also too, like it just kind of flows from you. I think there's just something that about the murder mysteries that you just love. I was gonna say gel with, but that just makes it sound like you have some sort of experience in it or something, which that's a whole nother thing to question,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But it just kind of comes good easily for you. I love that.
Yeah, and I have these index cards that I write what I want to happen next in the story. And so Act 2 is actually broken down into 4 different sections, and this is just the first section. And I ran out of room. I wrote on the Oh, am I glitched? Am I stopped?
Nope, you're
Yep.
good. We can still hear as long as the
Okay.
audio is good. That's what I'm worried about.
Okay, I
Ah.
wrote on the front and the back, and then I had to staple 3 more cards on.
Hmm.
And that's just one part of Act 2. That's like the first quarter of Act 2 that I have all these ideas for. So we'll
That's
see
awesome.
what's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I don't even know what my what's up is. I had like a dozen what's up last week and couldn't decide which one. And this week it's like we had a not snow day that ended up being a snow day for us. I guess I'll share that. So it snowed here in Michigan yesterday, which is normally not a big deal. But this storm came in and it was like going to be like a quick and furious one, which would have been fine if it wasn't quick and furious when I was supposed to be driving my kids to co-op, which is half an hour away.
Mm.
And so I also had one child that was not feeling well and was going to, so normally I would just stay home and send my oldest daughter driving the other child, but I just didn't feel good in my gut about that. And so I'm like, so she just the sick child stayed in bed. I prayed about it all morning. I got up at like 5 and started watching for school closings, hoping, right? So then I didn't have to make the decision. Because if they miss, I feel bad because there's things you only go once a week and you miss out on a lot. Um, anyway, so everything there was no school closings. I looked outside, didn't seem too bad. I'm like, you know what? I've prayed about it. We're just gonna do it. It must be this is what we're supposed to do. We get in the car. We did not get a quarter of a mile. So down the road from us is it's called Lee's Hill. I don't know. Probably if you weren't born here, you might not even know that. It's like kind of an old fashioned.
Mm.
Probably the family named Lee probably lived on there back in the 40s. It's probably that. So no one's gonna remember that but me. Um, not because I was born in the 40s, but because my family grew up. Anyway. I'm so far in the weeds right
Just keep
now.
digging. Just keep digging.
Yeah, yeah. I got a quarter of a mile from my house, halfway up that hill, and started fishtailing. Like, not even braking or anything, I was fishtailing. So then it was like there's nowhere to turn around and there are cars behind me. And you know how I hate people that like when the roads are bad, but they think they're not that bad, so they drive fast and they get mad when, so people were like honking and I'm like, I'm not gonna go faster. So I did 35 miles an hour up the hill and the first road I could, I turned around. I said, girls, that's my sign. We're going home. And we got home and we were barely home like 30 seconds and then it really hit. Like, it just became like you couldn't even see across the street, and I'm like, I did not wanna be driving in this. So that was my what's up, is that we took the day off of school, and I don't feel bad about it.
And aren't you glad you didn't send your inexperienced driver? Good night.
Yes, yes. I know she needs to get experience driving in bad weather. I mean, she lives in Michigan, for goodness sake, and I got that experience because I went to public school and drove to school every day, like, my senior year, and so, if school wasn't canceled, you were driving, so that's where I got
Yeah.
it. So I know she needs to get the experience, but, the car that we are driving we traded vehicles with my dad. I have a four-wheel drive big monster truck, but it's terrible on gas mileage, and it seats 5, but we traded because my dad felt better with us being in, like, his vehicle, which is more of an smallish SUV kind of thing, but I think there's something wrong with his anti-lock brakes too.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, so there's a whole lot there, but yes, I'm so glad that I did not send them, and, I'm glad that I turned around when I did, and yeah, I know that I'm always the one's like, "Oh, it's starting to snow, I don't know if we should go." I know I'm that person. That's why I forced myself to go yesterday, but then when it went south really fast, I was like, "There's my sign, thank you,
I
Lord."
don't really care
Mhm.
to drive in the snow either, and I learned to drive in Alaska, but it's not my driving I'm worried about. I'm just
Yes,
gonna leave it at that.
yes,
It's
'cause
everybody else.
I could have made it to Grand Blanc. I know I could have. But why would I do that? Yeah, I agree.
Jen, on the tail
So
end of your "What's up?" what would be very entertaining is if we could somehow get Japanese subtitles underneath when you're talking. So it would be like the reverse experience of watching a dubbed over Japanese movie where the
oh,
lips don't
because
match.
because it's not because we're having issues right now. That's hilarious.
The audio is fine, but it's just kind of fun to try
Right.
to catch up with your mouth.
Like, see, her mouth is perfect on where I am. Like, when I'm watching her, her mouth
Mm,
is not delayed.
I think it looks better now. I think it's a
yeah, it's better
StreamYard
now.
issue.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's probably is.
All right. In our chat, Purpose Behind the Pen says, I have started a tracking writing journal where I see where I am with each of my masterpieces. I have
Love
at
it.
least 7 with only 10 or less chapters left in each one. That's
Yay!
awesome. I think that's amazing that you work on many different projects. We talked about that in our perfection. episode that maybe don't just focus on one and hyper focus on one, work on different projects so that you can get rid of the perfectionism in it. So good for you. And Piper says her what's up is that she has a plague at their house. Oh, period. No writing getting done, period. I get that.
Ugh.
So we used to be a family of 8. I have 3 stepchildren that I raised. And so there were 6 kids and my husband and I for years. The 3 older ones are now all married and out on their own. But when we had 6 kids, I felt like there was like always someone sick. I only have 3 children now, which, some people are like, oh, that's a lot. But I have 3 children in the house now, all teenagers. And this winter, constantly there's someone sick. If you talk to me, there's someone sick in my house and it's a different person and it rotates and it just keeps coming back. And it is a crazy winter this year. So.
And there seems to be like the virus after another going around. Like,
it's different things. Yes. It's not
Yeah.
always the same thing. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Agreed. And the stinky thing is that my kids and I and my husband, we all volunteer in different areas of our church and we are a small church. So, and I'm that mom that if my kid's sick, I'm staying home with her. Like there's lots of different reasons why, unless there would be reasons why I maybe wouldn't, but most of the time I'm gonna stay home with her. So I feel like we've been like, kind of missing a lot, but it's not as bad as probably what I'm thinking. I have that guilt complex, like when I don't go and I'm supposed to be there,
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on, Jamie. You want me to put it up on the
No,
stage?
I will give an
Okay.
introduction. I would
Okay.
like to announce that for the first time in my newly single existence, I have a Valentine. And I am going
Aw.
to post his picture for everybody. Go ahead, Jen. How could I resist this proposal for Valentine's Day? Kurt said he wanted me to be his sweetheart, and I could not resist. So yes, we are we are just
adorable.
it's a platonic friendship thing, but it was very sweet to be thought
Oh,
of.
I thought you were going to say it was complicated.
Well, that too.
So yes, and the reality, Fantasyland is fun, but the reality is I didn't have a Valentine outfit for him, so I went to the Dollar Tree and I was like, oh, he can wear a sandwich board.
There you go.
So there's Kurt. I hope he makes you smile.
Catherine says ultimate Valentine.
Yep.
For those of you that are listening, you should go over to our YouTube channel. But if those of you that are just listening as a podcast, Jamie has a porch goose named Kurt. And if you've been following us for any length of time, you'll know that he got his name in the fall because his fall outfit made him look like Kurt Cobain. And so Kurt is all decked out for Valentine's Day, and that's who her Valentine is. I love it.
That's my what's up.
Valentine's Day is not one of those things that like my husband and I care too much about. We get for our kids, even though they're teenagers, we still get for our kids. But he came home and we're getting ready for bed, and on the bed was a grocery bag and there were some M&M's bags in there that I had got him. And he's like, I didn't get you anything. I said, oh, no, this is not anything romantic. I just knew that if the kids were getting M&M's for Valentine's Day, I better get you some. Otherwise theirs were going to come up missing. That was the extent of our romantic Valentines.
Do you want to hear about my Valentine's Day?
Absolutely.
After dinner, I was reading a book on my recliner with a blanket on me and my feet up, and my husband was playing a video game, and he said something about how crazy the store was today because of Valentine's Day, and I said, oh yeah, is it Valentine's Day? And he said, yup, and then we went back to doing what we'd been doing.
I feel like the people who care the most about Valentine's Day are single people, just based on what I see on my social media. Like they're all obsessed about the fact that they don't have a Valentine, and anybody who has one is just kind of like, is that today?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Oh my gosh. Piper says she helped the big gremlin crochet a football for her Valentine.
Aw, that's so cute.
That is. Crocheting, I don't know if you ladies know this, it is back, and it is like back with a like fiery passion. All of these young people are into crocheting now. My youngest daughter, 13, when my aunt passed away, we inherited a bunch of crochet stuff, and she's like, I think I want to learn. And I wish she would have wanted to when my aunt was still alive, because my aunt was amazing. People knew her as this like really amazing crochet artist, I would say. Anyway, so she's been crocheting things and giving gifts, and she wants to like make a bunch up and have like a sale or something to raise money for her mission trip in a couple years. And so it's pretty cool. But like it's like crazy all the different people that are crocheting now,
And they're
young
doing these little
people.
creatures that are really cute.
And those things sell at craft fairs. Kids love them. Yeah, I agree.
You could
So
take her to the craft sale to sell crafts, and you could sell books like Ben suggested.
yeah. I literally had that conversation with my husband. So Kathy Swanson says her husband, nearly 40 years, always brings her flowers and candy.
Aw.
Oh, nice.
She said this year I told him no candy because I'm trying to lose weight. So he bought me a case of Diet Coke and a bag of radishes.
I
I
love it.
like radishes. That's the best.
That's
They are
awesome.
almost heart-shaped.
They are.
Aw, that's cute.
I've never really met anybody besides my Uncle Dale who would have been close to 90 this year if he had lived, who would say, I like radishes.
Oh, if
He
you cook
loved them.
I
them,
like them.
if you cook them, you can make them like hash browns, like in
Yeah.
oil, like,
Have you tried it? Because I
Mhm.
tried it and it tasted like cabbage, which I like
Oh.
cabbage, but it didn't taste like hash browns. But I'll have to talk to you later about how you did that. No, he would like eat them raw and just yum.
I
Like as a
like them in
snack.
salad.
Mm. Aw, and Meg says her 1-year-old grandson was her little Valentine this year.
Aw. Oh,
That's
that's a
sweet.
great age.
Yes. All right, ladies. I am getting very excited for this episode. We've never done an episode like this. It is one of those things that we've kind of talked about in the past, but we do answer questions if they come up. But to have a specific episode just to answer questions is something that we've never done yet. But so if you're just tuning in and you're with us live and you did not submit any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them. I'm not sure we're going to get to all the questions that we've got through email and through our Facebook group, but we're going to try. And again, I would like to also point out that we are not experts at anything. We have our whole lives, not our whole careers. I've always said when we started this podcast that we knew we weren't experts, but we were a little bit farther along than some people. And that if when we started, there would have been someone that would just been a little bit farther along than us to mentor us. So we're a little bit farther along. So you might find people in the industry that can answer these questions way better than us. But we're going to give you our take on these questions. And that's my, I guess,
Disclaimer.
disclaimer. That's the word I was
And
looking
some people
for.
might be further along than us even, so.
Yeah, that's why we love our chat. If you've got an answer that you think is worth spitting out there, spit it out.
All right. So while we're doing the questions, it's gonna be hard for me to go back and forth between the chat and this, but we're gonna try really hard. So, sorry, I got to go back to over here. So we're gonna start our first question. Tina, do you want to read our first question and who it's from?
Sure. Our first question is from Laura. And it is, what do you do when you have the first 25% of your book done? Sorry, I have to scroll over here. Down, sorry. And you also have the midpoint, the climax, and the ending, the last 10%. But all those middle areas feel like a mystery.
Ooh, the murky middle.
Murky middle. It sounds like she also has the murky, like, 35%, and then the murky, 80%. So that's the hardest part for me. I think going from my 75%, like the climaxy area, to the resolution at the very end is where it's hardest for me. So, all right. Does anyone want to answer this first?
Well, what I do is if you know your climax and your midpoints, you're at 25%, you know what your midpoint is, then you need to get your characters, obviously, from where you are to where you need them to be. And so I think, well, what would be the first step that they would take to get there? And I write that scene. And then when that scene is done, I say, well, and because of that scene, what's the next logical step? And I just keep writing until I get there. And you can always go back and change it in your second draft, but like get the story down is
Right.
the advice that was given to me. And because of it, I got my book 3 of my last series done, and I have a whole first act done on the next book, and it hasn't been a month. So
And I would guess that if you're struggling with these different kind of murky middle, we'll call it that, murky middle areas, but you have all of your like hot points of your story, I would guess that you are maybe struggling with perfection as well. So take a step back and check out that episode if you haven't already. Sometimes you just got to write it, and maybe it won't be as great as you think it is, but you can always go back and fix it.
Right.
My other suggestion would be to try, if you're not a plotter, you might want to give it a try. Even if at this point, do like I do with which I don't have my board here because it's in the other room because I was writing, um, you know, post it, note it out, and then put some ideas on post notes and put it where the chapters would be, and maybe that will help you to build it from that way. But for me, I don't struggle with the murky middle as much as others because I take the time and I plot it all out beforehand. And it still changes as I write it. Sometimes the characters decide they don't want to do that, or another character decides to pop their head up. And so then it changes, but at least I have a better roadmap than before. So,
If I'm in this situation, I pull out Jen's what if list idea, and I
mm,
would, what if this happened? What if that happened? And it would lead you on a trail to possibly a breakthrough. And then to piggyback off Tina's advice, you might want to pull a Margaret Mitchell and work backwards. So instead of trying to say,
mm,
how do I get my characters from where they are in part one to where they need to be in part two? Go to part two and say, how did they get there, and work backwards. Supposedly, Margaret Mitchell wrote Gone with the Wind backwards, the last chapter first. And so that's why I call it doing a Margaret Mitchell.
yeah, I love that. That's a great idea.
Piper said kind of the same thing too.
Oh,
In the
there.
chat.
Yes, she did.
Yep.
Great
That's
minds think alike.
all right. Next question, also from Laura. She says, um, how do you determine the best time to write for you, meaning time of day and whatever other ways you want to take this? How do you determine the best time to write for you? Oh, trial and error is what
You
I
took
would
the
say.
words right out of my mouth.
Mhm.
And if you know yourself and you know when your most creative time is, the time when you have the most energy, the time where you actually have time to write. Like I would
Mhm.
say the time you actually have time to write is the number one best time to write. But then
Mm,
if you have a lot of time to write and you're trying to narrow it down, when do you have the most energy? When is it easiest to be the most creative? And then trial and error. Is I
mhm. For me right now, the best time to write is like I got a lot of writing done at the doctor's office this week. I again, like Tina had said that she followed some of our advice for productivity. I'm carrying paper, pad, and pen with me everywhere I go, and I've been using that method to write as opposed to my laptop, and I'm getting more writing done than I have in a long time. So, and some productive stuff. So, sometimes you just got to fit it in. But I also think it changes. Don't you guys think that it changes as your life changes?
I'm
Because
really
there
glad
was a,
that
go ahead.
I'm just really glad you gave me that opening. Finish your thought, and then I'll take it. I'll
I was
answer
just
that
gonna
for you.
say that years ago when we first started writing, mornings were best for me. I got my girls on the school bus and I was ready, and I would sit down for a couple hours and write. Well, I don't have that anymore because I homeschool and my life just is a lot different. So,
Right. And my component that I wanted to add is there's a expectation, and like, is your goal to be productive and writing because you have these goals? Because if it isn't, and you're feeling that you have more of an artistic temperament, you won't always want to write, and then you have to struggle with, well, do I make myself write? Do I get accountability buddies to make sure that I actually do the writing? Or do you just let it organically happen? Because sometimes you will find it's a feast or famine situation. All you want to do is write. And
mm,
sometimes you will discover you don't want to. And and the question is, will you let yourself down and not achieve a goal if you give into that? And is that important to you? So there's a lot that factors into whether you should or shouldn't have writing time.
right. So again, back to my original answer, trial and error, because do still believe in the advice that we've been giving from day one, and that's put your butt in the seat. So, like, yes, you can work to like try to figure out what the best time for you is. Um, how do I know if I'm going to be a better writer in the morning or the night? But it comes down to it. If you want to write, you just got to put your butt in the seat and you got to write. Sometimes, like, if you want this to be a career, you got to treat it like it's a job, you know? So am I doing that lately? No, but it's the truth. When I was doing that, I was way more productive and much happier with my career at that point. So good question.
Yeah.
All right.
So the next question is, what advice would you give a struggling author?
This is from Sarah.
Yep.
Hmm. Come on over so we can cry in our coffee together.
Well, what is define the struggle? There's so
Right.
many ways that authors struggle, and I think that that's what is the roadblock for me to just give one sage piece of advice. Um, so that's difficult for me. I would have to think about it if I wanted to give a sweeping piece of advice. You know what? I know. Be yourself. Be authentic, because we're the body of Christ, and not everybody is meant to be an elbow or a finger or an eyeball. And so you need to bring what's authentic about you and not try to be another fill in the blank author, because there's already that fill in the blank author, and you need to be you, the author.
My suggestion is find other writers. Find other Christian writers that you can, if it's not a writing group situation, if it's just a support group, something, you need to find others that are not family members, are not even friends, but other people that are going through the same thing as you, and try to get together with those kind of people. Find them through Facebook. We have a Facebook group, and there's other writers in there. There'll be ways of connecting with them. We're going to talk a little bit more about connecting a little bit later, but that's what I say is find other writers to support you.
Mhm. And when we struggle, and when things are hard, that's when we grow the most, and that's when we develop to become our best.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I
lean
think
into the
that's
struggle.
ooh, I love that.
All right. Sarah has another question. She says, do you make a living writing, or is it more of a hobby income wise? We're getting right down to it. I'll go
I'm
first.
okay.
I'll go ahead. You
Try
want
not
to, Tina? You
I so just laughing because yes, yes, and yes. Like I want to make a living writing, but income wise, it looks like more of a hobby at this point
right,
because I'm not making the money I want to be making.
right. I make enough money to cover all of my expenses plus. I do not make enough money to support my family, which was not the plan at this point in our income anyway with my husband. But long term, as he retires, the goal is for me to supplement his retirement so that we are not eating beans and rice and dog food for the rest of our lives. But do I make a living? Like, can I support my family? No. But am I making more now than I did 2 years ago? Yes. So again, I only have 3 books out, and do I make more money with 3 books than I did with 2 books? Yes. Do I make more money with 2 books than I did with 1 book? Yes. But do I support my family? No, not at this point. And Jamie doesn't have her novel out yet, so
Well, I am supporting myself with a day job, and the writing. Like, I have magical thinking about the writing because I have an LLC. Because the ideal is that someday I'm going to do all of this work that I do not want to do and I'm not doing. So I am in the land of magical thinking right now. I'm a little
Mhm.
delusional.
You're looking for the silver bullet.
Yeah, someday. I mean,
Right.
I'm looking without trying not to look, trying not to be
Mhm.
anxious about it.
But I do think it is just the amount of work that we put in. It will eventually pay out,
Mhm.
right? I wouldn't
Mhm.
open a donut store, a donut shop after making a couple of donuts and then open up the doors and expect to be making money. I mean, I could open the doors, which I have. I mean, I do have the books out there, but it is all about producing a product and putting it out there. So, some people do this. There's a lot of our listeners that do this, like, they publish but they don't ever care to make money at it or not, and that is completely okay. Like, there's going to be different, especially Christian writers. I come across a lot of Christian writers that feel that if you make money off of your writing, then it's somehow not a ministry. And
Hmm.
I guess they must make their pastor work for free too, and anyone else in their church that does
Mhm.
stuff. But anyway, that's a whole nother
That's
like
a
road to
different
go
can
down.
of worms.
It's a different can of
Mhm.
worms.
And I
I'm the
know
I'm
we
the
have
I was gonna say I'm the can opener all the time. Keep those worms over there. Yep.
there's other listeners also that are successful with series, and so it's there's
Mhm.
a wide variety in our community.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sonia asks, what what are your feelings on
Mhm.
generative AI to write books? If you were to use it, in what part of your writing process would you implement it? Brainstorming, outlining, writing, editing. What about using AI in cover art? All right, who
Mm.
wants to go first on this one? This is a
I'll
hot
go
topic
first.
everywhere. Yeah.
It was really funny because Shell and Piper and I, and maybe Joe was there, I'm not sure, but we were talking about how, there are some people who will clutch their pearls at any usage of AI. And we weren't, none of us having an opinion, but we were discussing the phenomenon of it being so divisive.
Mhm.
And I was joking, I'm like, in the future, this is going to be a burn on the playground. Your mama uses AI. So that's my contribution. Like I guess I don't, that's the problem with me, is that I'm not actively working. But I suppose if I was going to be working, I would stay away from the cover art because I've seen really weird results. So until it gets better, I probably wouldn't do that, like random
Right,
appendages that shouldn't be there, and stuff like that.
right,
And I don't know, I might use it for a prompt, but I don't necessarily need it. The imagination
right.
part, which I think is where people who are lacking reach out to those kind of tools, I'm not lacking in that department.
Yeah. So I want to start with the cover art. I do have strong feelings about that. I do believe no, do not use AI. Because the way the AI works is it like basically scans, the internet and all like history like that, and scans other art and then uses that as its inspiration and then it gobbles it together. So in essence, you're taking someone else's art and the time they put into it, and then you're like stealing parts of it, even if it's like an ear from Van Gogh and a nose from a current artist now, whatever. I mean, I'm really kind of like making this sound more simplistic than it is, but I agree with Jamie. It doesn't look good right now. Um, Now, can you use AI within Photoshop to help with certain things? Yes, that's the fun. So this is where the gray area is. Technically, if you use the repair tool in Photoshop, that's considered AI, and all it is erasing something out and replacing the background. The AI within Photoshop recognizes what's happening in the picture and it replaces it and makes it up like the background of whatever you took out. That's AI. So this is where it becomes a gray area, right? So if you know Photoshop and you're using those type of tools, I don't see an issue with that. But if you're going to some sort of site and like trying to like create art out of nothing, I do have an issue with that myself personally. But do I use AI in other areas? Yeah, I use spell check. I definitely use. I mean, all of these Grammarly and all the other ones, those are AI. Um, I don't have any issues with that. And I do again, we talked about this, I think last week. Chat GPT is another one of those like gray areas. You could write probably an entire novel. We talked about this in my What's Up, is that I read a book recently that I am pretty sure was written entirely with AI.
Mhm.
Because there was just some parts that were just not quite right. So
The
um
third appendage.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I do have issues with that because then, again, it's stealing work from other people. Like I told, the first clue to me was I read two different sentences that were like, I know I've read that before. Like they're
Mm.
kind of unique-ish sentences. So again, where do you think that the AI is getting this information from? Scanning other books and pulling it together.
Mhm.
But could you use Chat GPT as inspiration if you're like struggling? I think that's fine as long as you're not just copying and pasting.
Mhm.
So that's
And
my take
also,
on it.
I know this because of my job. If you go into any search engine and you want to put a cat on your cover art, and you put cat in the search box, and you get results. That's AI.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
like, I'm against having AI actually do the whole cover, but using it as a tool in
Mhm.
any part of writing your book. Use it as a tool, but don't have it do it for you. Like, that's
Agree.
the whole
'Cause that'd be no
totality
different.
of my opinion.
'Cause that'd be no different than me reading an author that I like and being inspired, like, "Oh, I really like how she really focused on the weather," and then I try to focus on weather when I'm writing, right? So it'd be similar.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on because it's gonna be a long episode. Okay, Cindy asks or says, "There are plenty of people in the industry saying we are out of the quote unquote gold rush phase of indie publishing, and people have to change their expectations and ways of doing business to reflect that. What does that mean to you guys? Have your expectations and plans changed since you began?"
Ah,
Mine haven't, because the gold rush was put out as many books as possible. Don't worry about the quality. Just get as much
Mhm,
out there as you can, and you're going to make a lot of money. And that did work for a while. But now that we're out of that, people are looking for quality.
mhm.
And so that doesn't
Agree.
change anything I do, because I just there was something in me who that said I can't just write something and not worry about the quality just to get numerous books out there.
Mhm,
I wouldn't be writing at all if I didn't fall for a little bit of that gold rush mentality because I knew I had a natural um, proclivity to writing well, a talent, a gift, or whatever. And so I thought, write some stuff and put it on the internet, and people will snap it up and grab it and buy it, that was going to be the reality. So, yes, my expectation changed pretty dramatically. And so, when I very first did my first NaNoWriMo novel, it was sort of like the beginning of all of that because the internet was new. The ideal of an Amazon was like new. Oh gosh, I'm so old. And so it was a novelty to purchase literature, for lack of a better term, from the internet. And so as the whole thing became saturated, my mindset changed and grew sort of paralleled those changes. And so I think my biggest issue, and I'm glad for it, I'm glad that I was not uh, educated enough about the publishing process to really throw some stuff out there to try to just game and get money, because I am very glad that it caused me to stop and think about, do I want to do this, and do I want to be an artist, or do I want to be a capitalist?
right,
Not that you can't be both, but you understand in the context of this question, that's what I'm saying.
right. And so for me, the difference is, when I started, I knew that I was gonna, like, dabble in advertising for my books as well. And now in this market, you is definitely a pay to play market. You have If you wanna sell books, you have to you have to buy advertising. And what I have learned from trying to dabble in that is that I hate it, and that, um, it sucks my soul from me.
Tell me how you really feel, Jen.
Yes. So what's
Don't
changed for
mince
me is
words.
I am gonna just focus more on the writing. I'm not really gonna focus on sales until, like, I really have to. Right now, I'm just gonna focus on writing and putting books out, and someday I will look over there. Where before it was part of my plan. I was gonna write and advertise, and that has changed mostly for personal reasons. So it definitely is more of a pay to play than it was when we first started. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
okay, Sarah asks, what trainings or courses have been most beneficial to your author business?
Wow.
I will say that writing every single day, 250 words, 500 words, um, I believe did more for me than paying for any training or course. But
Mm,
that is my own opinion.
okay. Everything I've purchased from self-publishing Formula. I think they still call themselves that. The Mark Dawson stuff, all of their stuff is high quality. They over deliver, and as new stuff comes out, you get all the new stuff. There have been lots of other trainings out there that I've tried and been very disappointed, or the people kind of fall off the face of the planet. So SPF has been around long enough that I would say with confidence that it is expensive, but it's an investment in your education. They do payment plans. But that's the one area that I think that I would give a nod to, that though if you wanted to put some money into your career, that I would start there, and I'd be wary of everybody else.
I I also like self-publishing formula, but the thing that had the biggest impact on my writing, I can't talk, writing career was the Write Better Faster courses
Mm. Our
and
Yep,
the stuff that Becca Syme does with Strengths for Writers.
and Becca's a friend of the podcast, so we support her too, for sure, yeah.
Yes, and it helped me to understand who I was as a writer. So, and it doesn't help me with the writing itself. It helps me with the process and the
Mhm.
systems and being able to adapt systems to who I am. Highly
Alright.
recommend.
Alright. So, I don't know why we don't have a banner for this one, so I'm just gonna read it out loud. Cindy says, "Everyone, meaning the louder voices in the indie publishing arena, says newsletters are crucial. They're the only platform you own that allows you to talk directly to your readers. What is your, all of us," she says, "all yous guys, take on newsletters? Have you changed your stance since starting, and have you seen an actual quantifiable difference in book sales?" I have an answer.
Go for it.
Yes, I've seen a difference.
Mm.
Um, it is by far the number one way that I sell books. You guys have seen all these different episodes. I think everything kind of goes into the soup, like Jamie likes to say, like, yeah, all the ingredients are into the soup, and the soup is good because you put all the different ingredients in. But like, I would say that my newsletter is the broth, that without that, you don't have soup. And I hundreds of sales when I launch because of my newsletter, and because you can see clicks, and you can pretty much tell where your sales are coming from. So and then again, like we've had just this past month, I mean, we've had all the DMARC issues. There's been issues with, I don't know if I was not with Mailchimp, but people are leaving Mailchimp like it's on fire because of different issues and stuff that they have. But guess what? They can, because they can take all of their subscribers with them wherever they go. But my other than newsletter, my social media, my number one social media, my largest following was on Twitter. And guess what? Twitter is kind of dying out. And so what do? Can I take those people with me? I cannot. So I 100% agree still that newsletter is king.
I agree, although I don't have the data to back up my opinion the way you do because I stink at sending out newsletters, but I believe in them.
Right.
So,
Yep. All right. One last question before let's see. Let's look at the comments really quick. Um, let's see. Oh, yeah. Piper talking about SPF, I think. She says they also add as things change and you have lifetime access. Yep, I agree. Catherine seconds the Better Faster Academy courses. Kathy says that she loves MailChimp. The big issue was just the price. Yes, that's true. I think that's why people were leaving mostly. Um, and then, and then Piper wants to clarify that that's the difference between using AI and using generative AI. I agree. I absolutely agree that there is a difference between the two. And we were like kind of cloudy in that. So, okay. Last question before we head on out of this. I just had it.
do you want me to read it while you're trying to find it?
Yes, please. Yes,
So
please.
Laura asked, "Is there any plans for the full quartet to be back in your group, or will it be the dynamic duo for a while?" Trio today.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
trio.
unfortunately, my work schedule, it's a hybrid situation, and I'm not always home to be available to podcast at the current time that the podcast is airing. And so, for as long as this podcast airs on Friday at 10 a.m., my participation will be sporadic, unfortunately. So, that's the answer to my attendance.
And we have recently, I talk to Rhonda all the time, and Rhonda's still going through medical issues. She's got some other issues with some loved ones, medical issues. And so she still is 100%, her heart is here, and her goal is to come back. So hopefully in the near future, it'll be the quartet back in swing again.
Please
So,
pray for her.
yeah,
Yeah,
we love our Rhonda. We miss her.
we do.
So, all right. Did you guys like that? Having a live Q&A? Like, I mean, I liked it, but our listeners were more.
It was fun.
It was
I
fun.
liked it because I didn't have to answer the question if I didn't want to.
Well, there you go. Wouldn't it be awesome if we had an opportunity to do this, like, I don't know, monthly?
How could we do something like that?
If only we had a way of doing that.
If only.
Yeah.
We have talked for probably well over a year, probably a couple years now, about the possibility of doing a Patreon. And I know that every time we do, you guys are very supportive and say, yes, we would support you. We would support you. But we kind of felt like we didn't know what we would offer in our Patreon. We've been praying about it. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen, we finally started a Patreon. We love doing this podcast so much that we have been paying out of our own pockets to do this for years now. And if you love this podcast and you would like to support us, we would really appreciate it if you would become a patron. And so we're going to talk. I am not in the right part. I am in, how do I go to make it look like it's?
You have to go down to the bottom left where it says creator, and you have to change that to member.
So you can kind of see, this is not.
Jen, you're glitching. You sound like Cher, unless it's my
member.
connection.
It's probably.
It's probably because she's trying to share her screen.
Yeah, I think it's maybe. I see the StreamYard thing. We might have to try to find another product to do the podcast. But okay. So we have 4 different levels for those of you that are interested. The first level is if you just appreciate us and you want to help us to continue this podcast, then you can support us with $3 a month. It's about the price of a cup of coffee for once a month, and we would so appreciate anyone who's willing to do that in this level. The next level up is what we call our shenanigans level. And at this level, for $5 a month, again, a couple cups of coffee, are we worth that to you? It would include our Zoom writing room. Now, currently we host a Zoom writing room in our Facebook group, but we are paying for it. And we have had some of you say that you would help pay for it. Well, here's a way to help pay for it, is to become a Patreon over on our Patreon. So you would include the Zoom writing room, which is always available. It's not moderated, but we will be popping in there randomly. Also, once a month, a live Q&A like this. But instead of just the questions coming beforehand, it'll be live where you can be with us on camera if you want or not, but you actually can be in the room with us and discussing and asking questions, follow-up questions live with us. Also, once a month, there will be a live interactive Bible study with Tina Katane doing a live. Again, you're in the room with her. You get to ask questions and discuss and have like a small group Bible study with us as a podcast. Tina will always be there. The rest of us will join when we can. The next level up is our $10 super shenanigans. And in this level, you get everything that you get in the above levels, but you also get access to our old postcast. So back in the day, right? Very cringy for us. This is why it's a $10 level. Back in the day, we used to end the podcast and then we would go and do a whole nother hour podcast, but it was private and it was us critiquing each other's writing. And sometimes it would go longer than an hour. And so this was like not what we do in the podcast. This was us doing edited pieces, turning it into each other, and us giving real critique back to each other. And it was as cringy as it is. There's some really good advice that we give to each other, and you can watch the process. And we will be adding those, adding a few every month, and then you'll be able to access all of them eventually.
Yes, and if
So,
you miss Rhonda, there's a way to get your Rhonda fix.
oh my
Mhm.
gosh, Rhonda's so hilarious in the postcast
Mhm.
sometimes. My
Yeah.
word. And then finally, this is the big dog. If you really love us and you want also to get a little bit of a boost in your own writing back to from our audience, the $25 a month is our sponsor, the Shenanigans. We will have 4 spots every month, except for there's some months because of Christmas, we don't have 4 episodes. But if you sponsor us at this level, not only will you get everything that we just listed, but you will get your book mentioned on one. You will be the sponsor of one of our podcasts that month, where we will talk about we'll mention your book at the end. We'll read your blurb or whatever you send us. It's a great opportunity for you to really support our podcast. And you don't have to do $25 a month for the whole year. You would do $25 for the month that you would be mentioning. So that is our Patreon. And we already have some people that are encouraging us. They're like whoop whoop from Piper. Meg says yay. Piper's already joined. Thank you,
Aw.
Piper. Oh gosh, we really appreciate that. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about the Q&As. Actually, I'm excited to be able to do the live interaction with people. Like we do live here every Friday, but we don't really get to be the people be live back with us. So this is
Yeah.
super exciting for
It's
us.
gonna be great.
So it is gonna be great. So okay, we are really behind. So we're going to go to our feeding of the backs. I'm not even going to explain it. We're just going to go into it. Jamie, I'm going to have you go first because I know you got to get back to work. Can you share with us what the prompt was and share your writing?
Today's prompt was a journey adrift on a cloudy day, not in quotes. So I took it as just an inspiration. And here's what I got in 15 minutes. Oscar Zoroaster, Fadrick Isaac, Norman Henkel, Emmanuel Ambrose Diggs sulked in the corner of the wicker basket, his hand absently and automatically tugging on the cord, which sent a flame up into the silken circled chasm above, keeping him floating at a consistent height, still over the rainbow, but several miles from his origin, and still more from his intended destination. The hilarity with which his journey began had dissipated, and he felt as wilted as a neglected houseplant as his unseeing eyes gazed off into the endless blue, which seemed incongruously still against the moving carpet of clouds below. He was not a man naturally inclined to self-reflection, but the basket was too small for proper pacing, and the necessary stillness of his physical form seemed to transmute pent-up energy into the workings of his mind, which, bereft of any singular obsession now that the actual task of leaving Oz had been accomplished, seemed to be circling the loathsome topic of his own character like a swarm of hungry buzzards. What would his mother think of his current state? He was a man without a country, a man without a purpose, a man without a reason, without a purpose. Mentally, he retaliated against these charges. Had he not recently ruled a kingdom? And well, was he not, merely hours before the onset of this journey, a beloved and well-regarded ruler of adoring subjects? They didn't adore you, his mother's voice sniffed from the recesses of his memory. They were terrified of you, and so they obeyed. Mother was always making light of his accomplishments, Oscar reminded himself with a shake of his head. Of course she would press in on his incarnation as the wizard, but she would of course conveniently neglect the fact that the wizard was great as well as terrible, and that the terrible was really just a sort of grumpiness, akin to an episode of digestive upset. He'd never truly acted terribly in his capacity of ruler. He'd merely threatened and hinted of a capacity to act quite terribly, and that had sufficed to get his subjects to act in ways that were, after all, in their best interest. But that was then, this was now, and both the ghost of his mother and his own vanity insisted that a new situation be discovered, and what really could compare to the ruling of a kingdom? Maybe my days of ruling others are behind me, he sighed, stroking his chin with his free hand. Maybe it is time I settled in a quiet place and kept my own company. It has always proven to be the best of its kind, after all. For the life of a wizard had been full of lonely hours. Even in the presence of many subjects, he'd found himself alone. Yet never had he experienced what he'd heard others describe as loneliness. And then the timer went off.
Oh my word, Jamie. So good. I love that you wrote from his perspective. Is that his real name in the movie?
Yeah, in the
book?
book. I had to look it up, obviously. So I did copy and paste that. I don't know if that counts as using AI to help me.
It does.
We'll
So
allow it.
on theme for today, yeah.
Not generative AI though, so we're fine. That is amazing. I love it. So The Wizard of Oz, I have a love-hate relationship with it because I never read it. I only watched the movie, and I probably watched it way too young. The monkeys scare the baloney out of me still to this day. And so I also thought, like, that he was kind of a jerk, but, like, I love that we get to see some behind, like, motivation and stuff, like, so great. Gosh, I
I
love that you even
appreciate
come up with that
that.
idea.
It was
Yeah.
the first thing that came to mind, and, it's like
Mhm,
I told Tina, I did have an ending in mind, so maybe you're right that I am just naturally writing longer now because, darn it, I
mhm,
wanted to get to the point where I wanted him to be like, "Yes, I'm just going to be a lonely person," and then he comes down and starts wrangling up a crowd just because he just can't help himself. Like, that's where I
mhm.
wanted to get, and I couldn't get
Yeah,
there in 15 minutes, so
yeah, that's awesome.
thanks.
You know, when you go to a restaurant and you order dessert and it has like bananas and ice cream and brownies and whipped cream and nuts and cherries and
I
like
wanna go where you're going.
Yeah.
What
that's
restaurant are you eating at? Because that's
like
awesome.
I'm like a word nerd,
Mhm.
and that piece that she was just read was that dessert
Oh,
Yes.
thank
for
you.
me, for like the language that you use and the words that you chose. And yeah,
Thank you, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I'm gonna go have a sugar coma now.
Meg says that was so fun. Piper agrees, she says that was fun, and she said, "Oh, she loved the book." Um, Purpose Behind the Pen said, "It is the long name for me. For some reason, I was getting a little bit of Mark Twain vibes with the story. Great job." I was getting like this guy before you even said the silk and the balloon. I was like, imagine this guy like in a silk, like kind of almost jester colors, and like I don't know why it was just that's what I got. So, and Piper says they used to watch the movie every year and make a family movie night out of it when she was a kid.
Aw.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, that was great.
All right, if
All
I
right.
have to disappear before the end of the story, I'm not trying to be rude, FYI.
Nope, it's fine, totally fine. All right, so mine is nowhere near as long as Jamie's or as well written, but okay. A journey adrift on a cloudy day. The stagecoach creaked beneath the weight of passengers and trunks, its rickety parts groaning over the caked and dry ruts of the path the driver chose to follow. Had it been Charlotte's choice, she would have guided the horses into the short grass that bordered the cracked road, where surely there would have been some sort of cushioning for the old wheels of the stagecoach, and, more importantly, would have offered cushioning to those trapped inside the coach, all of whom appeared as dusty and as tired as the conveyance they rode within. But it wasn't Charlotte's choice. Nothing ever was, so she should have been used to it by now. The warm body nestled next to her moved, signaling that her tiny traveling companion was waking up. "Are we almost there, Mama?" Charlotte smoothed her daughter's hair away from her forehead. "Yes, I believe we are." Charlotte said, not at all certain that they were, but she didn't have the heart to tell the smaller version of herself so. "Will Uncle Cade be there to pick us up?" "Doubtful," Charlotte said. "He didn't even know they were on their way." "Uncle Cade is far too busy to leave the ranch. We'll just have to find a way to get there ourselves." "But how?" Little blue eyes looked up at her. "Oh, now don't you worry about anything, Emily. We've come this far on our own. We'll have no problem with the remainder of the trip." Emily nodded. "And when we get there, is that when Uncle Cade and you will get married?"
What? Who is this wench?
This is so Charlotte in the she's the ex-girlfriend. Remember that shows I don't know if I talked about this. This is Cade's ex-girlfriend
Oh
coming into
boy.
town. Yeah.
Oh boy. But I loved your whole descriptions of the stagecoach, and you didn't have to tell me that their butts hurt.
Right? Yeah.
You just know that like they're sitting in there, and every little bounce and bolt and jump is like just jarring their tailbones
Mhm.
to death. So it was really well done. Good job.
I appreciate that feedback because that's what I did not wanna say. I did not wanna just say that they were sore and whatever, like, I wanted to, like, make it feel that way, so,
Hmm.
alright, thank you, appreciate that. Piper says, "Oh, sneaky ending to leave us hanging on." Catherine says, "What?" And Max says, "Ooh." Alright, Tina, your turn.
Okay. I tried to not write in my murder mystery today because I'm in a scene I just didn't want to give away online right to the world.
I hear
And
you,
and
yep.
that's the scene that was in my head and I didn't want to watch. So this is like I literally took this literally.
Okay.
So here we go. Waves lapped against the side of Lisa's canoe, rocking it slightly. The dark clouds hovering over the lake threatened to drop its load at any moment. The wind whipped Lisa's shoulder length black hair across her face, a groan escaping her throat as she watched it push her paddle even further away across the water.
Ah.
Despite the cold and the imminent rain, Lisa pulled her coat off and pushed up her sleeves. Cupping her hands, she attempted to make her way toward the paddle. It was no use. It was drifting faster than she could make the canoe move. She had a decision to make. Sit into the canoe until the wind blew her into the shore, possibly in the rain, and for how long she could only guess, or jump in and swim after her drifting paddle. The
Mm.
thought of jumping into the frigid water wasn't appealing at all. But what if the wind changed, blowing her further out into the lake? She looked across the vast water, knowing that the shore on the other side was actually further than it looked. There was nobody around, nobody to call for help, nobody to see her or what she was doing. Her mind made up, Lisa pulled her shirt over her head and then proceeded to wiggle out of her jeans. She considered taking off her underwear, but the thought somebody might show up stopped her. She stood, took a deep breath, and dove. The cold of the water almost made her inhale in shock, but she managed to hold her breath until she surfaced. The wind blowing on her wet hair and face felt even colder than the parts of her body that were submerged. Knew she didn't have long. She grabbed the rope on the bow of the canoe and secured it around her ankle, her numb fingers fumbling to make a knot. Then she began to swim. Lisa had always been a good swimmer, her family joking she was part fish when she would stay in the water ages past when everyone else had gotten tired and made their way inside to change. However, the drag of the canoe and the inability to feel her limbs made swimming awkward, and her stomach twisted in dread. What if she didn't make it to the paddle or to the shore before hypothermia set in? She pushed herself to paddle harder, and slowly she began to gain on the paddle. That should have been swim harder.
Mhm.
It was only feet away when she heard the sound of a motor. She turned. How had that boat gotten so close without her realizing it? A face popped over the side, a huge grin greeting her. I didn't realize mermaids lived this far north. Three, two, one.
Oh, I hate this piece.
Thank you.
Which is the compliment because my anxiety level right now is through the roof. Like, oh, I could feel everything she was feeling and the whole like, oh, the paddle and the storm coming and yeah, well done, Tina.
Thanks.
Like, yeah, I truly felt that, which is a compliment even though I hated it.
Well, I wanted you to hate it, so there.
Good. Good. But now I wanna know about this, is it you said a smile, like, is it a good-looking man or
Just
is
yeah,
it a
in my
toothless
mind,
old dude?
it was
Alright.
it was like her, that guy, that guy, kinda like Mr.
Uh-huh.
Boss in her
Yes.
world. Yeah,
Awesome. We love a Mr. Boss. So, well done, Tina.
thanks.
Alright, so we don't have a whole lot of time we don't have any time, so we need to, go through this really quick. Tina, what is your what's next?
Just keep plugging away and doing what I'm doing
Mhm.
and keep writing.
Yep. It's basically the same as me. Still working on the back matter of my book. And my goal is to pull open Photoshop this week and finalize the cover. So that's where I'm at. So
Cool.
all right. Well, thanks everyone. We appreciate everybody who is already supporting us on Patreon, and we look forward to connecting with you guys there. And until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.
Bye bye.